We only have someone from numbers, but I think that if there is one thing that we can say about all these communities is how they deployed their own processes and how open and transparent were those processes. So please share the experience of the numbering community and what on all the steps that you have done and all the work that you have done these past 18 months.
Okay, my name is Mwendwa Kivuva. I was a community representative for the regional internet registries. As you know, how do I move this thing? All of the 5 regional internet registries that are shown here, the Latin America, Africa, Europe, and APNIC, they were required to each give 3 members from each community to form a group that was called the Consolidated Regional Internet Registry IANA Stewardship Transition Proposal Team. That is what you are hearing. It's being called CRISP team. The purpose of this team was to consolidate the views from the community on the numbering function. Now, what is the numbering function? You know that IANA, through a contract from NTIA, performs functions to the protocol parameters community, the naming community, and the numbering community. Those functions for the numbering community is actually very basic, issuing blocks of IP addresses to these regions. So the IP addresses that you are using maybe in your organizations, you get them from your local internet registry, which for example can be Liquid or can be Safaricom or MTN. But them they get from the regional internet registry, which is now, for our case, it's Afrinic. And where does Afrinic get those resources? They get them from IANA. So those are the functions. Now IANA has a contract with NTIA. IANA is within ICANN, and they have a contract with NTIA to perform these functions. But as we have been told, the US government said that it wants to transition that contractual accountability issue to the global community. That is why we came in to develop a proposal on how now the community will be working with the new IANA operator when US government moves out of the whole thing. So this one, Konstantinos has talked about. I will just go very quickly on the process we followed. The regional internet registry usually has a PDP process, proposal development, policy development process, not proposal. Like even probably through the CCTLDs in your countries, you usually have a process of developing policies for your CCTLDs within your countries. So even Afrinic has such a process, and this is a process that was followed in selecting members to the CRISP team, and also consolidating views from the entire community on how they want the IANA transition to happen. In a nutshell, I've explained the first bit, that the NTIA has a contract with ICANN to perform the IANA function. IANA falls within ICANN. So the numbering community came up with a proposal, which you can see below here. We are saying after that the 5 regional internet registry, they will have a contract with ICANN to perform the IANA functions. We have now, ICANN will now take the position, will still continue to perform the IANA operations, and we will have a review committee that will be formed from members of the 5 regional inter-registry that will be looking at the functions of ICANN in performing the IANA functions to see that those functions are performed to the satisfaction of the community. So the RIR are actually taking the position of NTIA and signing a contract with ICANN. So that is actually the basis of the entire proposal that was developed. Of course, the proposal has so many aspects within it. The part of these components of the proposal was that the IANA function stability and reliability will still be maintained as it has always been. We also said that we will not replace the role of NTIA with the RIS. We will replace the role of the NTIA with the regional internet registries, and will establish a review committee to be able to oversee the functions of ICANN in performing the IANA function operations. And we also seek to clarify on issues of intellectual property that are being held by the IANA function operator, and Mary has talked about that, and there was some communication between the 3 communities on how to handle issues of intellectual property that came within. The document that the community developed has had 9 principles. This document we said is an SLA, or the SLA is what we are calling a contract that the community will sign. The numbering community will sign with ICANN. And these are the part of the SLA principles. And very quickly, one of them was separation of policy development and operational roles. The IANA numbering service operator will merely execute the global policies adapted according to the global policy development process defined in the Address Supporting Organization, MOU. The second part of the SLA was description of the services provided to the actually issuing of unique identifiers. Another principle of the SLA was obligation to issue reports on transparency and accountability on a given time period. The fourth one was security, performance, and audit requirements of these functions. The fifth one was review of the IANA operations, and we said that we will develop a review committee. The sixth one was failure to perform. What will happen if the IANA function operator is not able to perform these functions that they are being delegated to perform? And the seventh one was term and termination of contract. How would we terminate this contract between the IANA function operator and the regional internet registry? And there's also continuity of operation. How will we ensure that the functions of the regional internet registry will still continue even if the IANA function operator ceases to exist? There was also the issues of intellectual property rights and the data that is being held by the IANA function operator, and the community felt that these intellectual property rights have to be transferred to a neutral entity, which was the IETF trust. There's also the issue of dispute resolution. How do you resolve disputes between the IANA function operator and the regional inter-registry? And actually the community said that such disputes should go through arbitration, and the community will choose the location where arbitration will happen. And there was also the issue of paying the IANA function operator. The regional internet registry said that they will set a specific sum of amount of money to be paying the IANA function operator for the function they are performing on behalf of the community. Now, we said there will be a review committee, and this review committee will be the one that is reviewing the functions of the IANA function operator and advising the number resource organization. NRO is the umbrella body of the 5 regional inter-registry we have talked about, on if the IANA function operator is performing according to their expectation. The community has developed a charter for the review committees, which actually says that the review committee will be formed of 15 members. 3 members from each region of the world, the 5 regions we have shown you. And they will be reporting in a given period of time, and that review committee will last for 2 years. And the members of the review committee will be chosen by the community, and there will be 1 member for each region who will be a staff member for the review committee. And how did we develop this proposal? We had public mailing lists that are available, archived. Even if you go to the respective website for the NRO or the Afrinic or RIPE, you will find the mailing list. Anybody could be able to join, anybody could be able to send feedback to the community, so that we maintain the first principle, the first condition that we are given by NTIA, that it has to be bottom-up, multi-stakeholder, and we have to involve all stakeholders in our processes. And if you go to this mailing list, you will see all the iterations that went through in developing the proposals. And there was so many feedback that was received in the respective mailing lists. These presentations have happened in all ICANN public meetings, in all regional all RIR meetings, like the Afrinic meeting that was happening in Tunisia. This proposal was presented. It was presented in Europe, in Australia, in America, in South America, all regions of the world. All the community members have seen this proposal. There was issues that reached consensus on our proposal. That was the high-level principles that we have talked about that form the SLA. We also clarified that the RIR will consult their respective communities when drafting the service level agreement. The service level agreement is out, people commented on it, and now it's in the final stage of actually just polishing it so that we can give this service level agreement to ICG if it's correct. Now the numbering community can sign the SLA with ICANN if NTIA gives us the go-ahead. There was also the high-level principle we have talked about on the review committee and how the review committee will be formed. And there is the issue of intellectual property rights. The numbering community said that the IANA.org domain and the IANA trademark is being held by ICANN. But because these trademarks are probably relevant in the functions of the IANA functions, they should be transferred to a neutral entity, and probably that neutral entity will be the IETF trust, but it is not cast in stone. It has to be IETF trust. It can be any other entity that the community feels is safe. But the CCWG, the naming people, said that they did not have a very strong opinion, but in part of the appendix on their document, they said that this intellectual property should remain with the IANA function operator, which is ICANN. The reason why the naming people felt that these functions, these trademarks should be transferred to a neutral entity was that if the server links with the IANA function operator, it should be possible for them to still continue using the IANA trademark and the IANA.org domain name. But let it be known that the numbering community are very satisfied with the work of ICANN, and they actually recommended ICANN to still continue to be the IANA function operator in the foreseeable future. So most of this stuff we have actually talked about. And Konstantin?
Thank you very much, Kivuva. Are you still with us? How confused are you? So before I pass on the floor to Fiona to walk us through the accountability process and explain to us why this is important, I think that for the past half an hour, both Mary and Kivuva have been very consistent in using the word a lot, community. And this is not accidental. The idea that the dialogue and the discussion needs to happen in a community-based structure is very important. And this is one of the things that I personally, and I'm sure the panelists would like you to take from this session. These discussions have been done in community-based fora, in an open and transparent way, and through robust consensus processes that have not been just created for this process, but the numbering community, the names community, and the protocol parameters community have always been operating under these consensus-based processes. And the internet has worked. I mean, for the past 20 odd years, these processes have ensured that the internet continues to work, and that people like my mother, who have no idea what the hell I am doing in my day job, are actually continue to use Skype and talk to me when they want. So please bear with us, and we will go straight to questions after Fiona, who is another person who has spent countless hours participating in calls and traveling around the world discussing issues of accountability, walks us through a little bit through the accountability process that is currently ongoing. Fiona, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sort of convinced I should not have any slides up. With the way the audience is looking, I don't know whether we are together, we are following each other, or we are lost. And I am almost tempted to ask for questions at this point so that we don't lose each other, because the accountability part becomes a bit more complicated. And I'm going to try and keep it very simple. Accountability, just like the word means, is really looking and for ways and mechanisms that will ensure that ICANN, in delivering on the IANA function, is doing it as we would like it done, as the different communities would like it done, the different stakeholders, and in a manner that is transparent, clear, and open. So the accountability track of the whole process is also preparing a proposal that will be presented to the US government alongside the ICG proposal. What does the accountability track involve? Basically, having been set up in December in 2014, our work has involved looking at the proposals that have been prepared by the different stakeholder groups that benefit directly from the IANA function, as well as looking at input from the ICANN community, because we have the craziest role of having to ensure that there is a balance in what the community members who do not directly get affected by the functioning of the IANA function and the input that they put in as vis-a-vis the input of the community members who are directly affected. And so we did divide our work into two work streams. One is work stream 1, that is looking at how what mechanisms need to be put in place with the transition, that is before the transition happens. For it to happen, what do we need to do? What mechanisms of accountability need to be put in place? And then there's work stream 2 that looks at what other mechanisms of accountability are important moving forward that must be factored in somehow, and at what points do they get factored in. So basically, we started off by defining our terms of reference and narrowed down our scope of work to those two areas. And then every supporting organization and advising council of ICANN, the SO and SCs, were asked to nominate 2 to 5 representatives. So the total group of representatives right now involved in this process is 155 volunteers. From the African region, We are represented by Tijani Jama from the At-Large Advising Council. We have Alice Mwendwa from the Government Advisory Council, and Eberhard Lise from the CCNSO, the CCTLD community, and myself from the numbers part of the entire system, being that I am a council member of both the NRO and the ASO, so I was appointed by the ASO to represent them in this process. Then we have representation at the same time of the address supporting organization on this whole cross-community working group on accountability. And the representatives are two from the address supporting council members, Jorge Villa from LACNIC and myself. Then we have from the CRISP team, two other members who are working with Kivuva, that is Izumi Okitani, the chair of the CRISP team. She's from Epinic, Japan, and Athena Fragokole from RIPE, who's also part of the CRISP team. So that is basically the team that has been representing the numbering space and the numbering interests within the cross-community working group on accountability. We've had conference calls every week since December, and say it's a minimum of 2 or 3 calls a week. We have had days when we've had full day conference calls of 5-6 hours long when we're not able to get together for a face-to-face meeting. And so we try to organize a schedule that is suitable for everyone to be able to put in 4 to 6 hours to get some work done. We have managed to have some face-to-face meetings in Frankfurt, Singapore, Istanbul, Buenos Aires, and we are now planning for Paris. So the work I'm going to present is really what we'll be going to do when we meet in Paris. We have divided our work into, we initially had 4 work parties, but now we have got 5 work parties. The first one deals on community empowerment, because we realize that a large part of accountability is having an empowered community that understands what their role as a community is and are able to appropriately contribute as an accountability mechanism to the running of the organization. Then we have got a second work party that is looking at issues of review and redress. When there is dispute, how do we manage dispute internally? How do the community members and those depending on the IANA function ensure that they have a second hearing and there is redress of issues, there is reconsideration of certain decisions that have been made? And so the second work party is looking at mechanisms that focus on that in as far as accountability is concerned. The third working party is on stress tests. For every mechanism we are developing, we did get a lot of feedback from the US government, and this is now not the NTIA, but the Senate, I think it's the Senate in the US, but basically the political structures within the US, who want to be sure that our accountability mechanisms have been thoroughly reviewed, tested, all options considered. So what we call that process is stress testing. We get a proposal, an idea of what need to do, we run it through stress tests, and in the stress test we are looking at it from very many different angles, positive, negative, to ensure that it properly covers the institution in case something that we are testing were to happen. So we run a lot of stress tests, and so the calls are long, 4 to 6 hours, because we are discussing a stress test and options of stress tests and how those need to be managed. Then the fourth is the legal team, because we need to ensure, much as we do the stress testing of our different mechanisms and we find those tests, those mechanisms viable, we need to ensure that they can fit within a legal structure. And so we have a legal team that is looking at both US and international law, being that the whole arrangement is going to move ICANN from not just being a US organization, but a global multi-stakeholder organization. Then we need to look at international law vis-a-vis US law and find an appropriate balance of where the legal system would appropriately be able to accommodate the requirements of the community based on the feedback that has been brought in. Our final work party that was created during the Buenos Aires meeting, which came as a result of the feedback we received from the community, is looking at new issues. We got feedback from the community asking about accountability of the community. What mechanism accountable within the different SOs and SCs? So that is a question that we had put aside in the beginning, but we've had to go back to because it has come up. And so we got a work party that is looking at the new issues. There's been a question of staff and management and the level of accountability on staff and management, and those are all being put into the work party 3 because we need to thoroughly review the input we received to analyze and see whether those are issues that will make it to work stream 1. Remember, work stream 1 are the accountability mechanisms that have to be in place before the transition happens. Otherwise, without them in place, transition can't happen. Or whether we leave those as work stream 2 issues and have them looked at over a longer period of time so that they are then able to make sense to the entire community. So then we have met in Buenos Aires. We have looked at all the public comments. We had a public comment period from 4th of May to the 3rd of June 2015. We received a lot of comments from the larger community, and I think we only got 3 comments from Africa. However, we hope that it was because of the lack of awareness that was presented at the beginning of the meeting when Constant asked about how many people were aware of what we were going to discuss. So I hope that when we have the next round of public comments, you will give your input. We are going to be meeting in Paris because a number of issues were raised regarding the different mechanisms and powers that we have managed to identify. Which, if you can allow me to just quickly list, the powers that we have, the accountability mechanisms that we have put into our proposal are first, a revised mission, commitments and core values of ICANN, which include incorporating from the affirmation of commitments, which is the document NTIA had signed with ICANN on the IANA function. So we are pulling out of that some key issues and putting them into ICANN's core values so that they are part of ICANN's commitments to the global community. We have also introduced reconsideration and rejecting of the budget and the strategy of ICANN, so the community is going to be more empowered to approve or disapprove the budget and the strategy of ICANN prior to ICANN being able to implement those. We are also giving the community the powers to reconsider and reject bylaws and changes to the bylaws, which means, unlike where we sit currently, where the bylaws are changed by the board, community members can give proposals to amendments to ICANN's bylaws, and this can then be put forward for the rest of the community to look at, discuss, approve, or disapprove. So there is a process. We have also introduced what we are calling fundamental bylaws. So we have the fundamental bylaws, which are going to be the overarching bylaws that guide how the organization operates and runs its activities. Then we'll have, and those fundamental bylaws are going to be very difficult to change. The core of what makes ICANN what it is, we are basically putting into those fundamental bylaws what has made ICANN succeed to date. And those are some of the things that are going into the fundamental bylaws, so that we then have the other bylaws supporting the fundamental bylaws, which will be adjusted with time, with trends, with whatever else that is happening globally and within the space that we are operating in. We are also empowering the community to be able to not just appoint board members to ICANN, but remove board members. And we have added something new, which is the ability of the community to remove the entire board. So the community can review the performance of the ICANN board and conclude that this board is failing us on delivering on its mandate because it has not done 1, 2, 3, and there's very clear steps and procedures in our proposals that were listing how that would come about. And from the public comments, we got a lot of support for that process. So it's really going to be something that comes as a last resort. By the time an organization decides we have to get rid of this board, it means the entire board have failed in carrying out their fiducial duty, and it's an issue of concern to the community, and there's been some exchange and trades off, and so the result is that the community wants to fire the entire board. We, to be able to get all those powers enforced, we are having to look at a membership structure of sorts that would facilitate the empowerment of the community. And right now, after our Buenos Aires meeting, with the feedback we got, we have been thrown in disarray because we have to go back and look at the proposals of the membership structures that we presented. We had initially presented an ASO, SC, membership structure, and then an SCSO designator structure. And we were happy to go with the SCSO membership structure because it was easier to implement. However, there's been questions that came forward from the community on the legal mandate and standing of the structures we proposed. So we have gone back to our legal team and they've had to review. And in our conference call yesterday, we were introduced to 3 different models. We are going to be looking at this in the Paris meeting on the 16th, 17th of this month, where we will discuss in details and then come back to the community after that, because everything, we did an analysis of the different powers and mechanisms, and we do have general consensus from the community to proceed. However, we don't seem to have the right membership model to support that, and that is where we are seemingly held, and so we are going to be moving forward with that. And so the bottom line for us is that we feel whatever proposal we come up with should not delay the IANA stewardship transition process, so we hope that it will still be on time. The proposal of the membership model, which will support the powers that and mechanisms we have proposed, will be simple and address the concerns in the most effective way with the minimum possible changes to the current ICANN structure. We shall not interfere with the IANA numbering functions. We shall not interfere with the consensus-based decision-making process that is already operational within the communities. And the one other thing that we felt was very important is that we feel that the proposals from the CCWG on stewardship, the CWG on stewardship, the names part, needs to be aligned to the protocol and the numbers proposals that came in earlier. That is very important so that it creates the right synergy. We have also been looking within our mechanisms. We have proposed review processes, and we are looking at consolidating the IANA function review into one review for the names, for the numbers, for the protocols, as opposed to the CRIS proposal where they want a review team separately for that. So we are looking at ICANN's current operations, and they have several review processes and mechanisms already in place. So the IANA review will become another review, like the accountability transparency review, the security stability review, the WHOIS review, the consumer choice and trust review. So this will be another key review that the organization has to take in addition to their normal organizational reviews. And I think that sums up what the accountability team is working on.
Thank you, Fiona. So in a nutshell, essentially what this accountability work means is that the United States government for the past 20 years has had an oversight role over the running of the IANA functions. The question automatically becomes, without the United States government having that oversight stewardship role, who is going to do it? And the answer to that question is that this can only be done through robust accountability mechanisms. And that is why the community is working and is debating all these issues that Fiona just talked you through. I would like to emphasize before giving the floor to all of you to ask questions, and please ask any question that comes to your head. It is very important that you participate. I do understand that all this information can be, you know, right now you're exposed to an information overload. I am sure that our panelists will be more than happy to share their presentations and also direct you. There are websites, there are mailing lists if you have time. But having heard you over these past couple of days, and the concerns that you have and the issues that you would like to address, this is one opportunity to participate in a process that you will be able to actually address a lot of these issues. Perhaps not all of them, because some of them are limited in this region, some of them are not even related to this IANA process. But a lot of the other issues that you have can be addressed through by participating in this process. And I will stop talking, and I would like to see questions. Okay. Yes, let's start with the gentleman right down on Pierre. Is there a microphone that we can have around?
Microphone.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can, thanks.
Okay, thanks very much, Pierre D'Angino, VP ICANN. And then, not question, but just brief comments on this. Just I wanted to really thank all of you, particularly our African members of those different groups. We really welcome what you are doing, and then we are also proud of you, because that was not quite simple a job, not to volunteer actually and be assisting to all of those many meetings that actually and I think so far ICANN is quite happy with what is being done, and we really think that that will continue. I just wanted to say that we managed to, at least when I mean me, we at the ICANN staff, you know, African staff, which is actually working on the Africa strategy, we launched a whole month, you know, of kind of building kind of awareness around this IANA transition thing. And we came up with a few conclusions that I would like to share. One of the questions that were put, and by the way, thanks to the 15 countries, I think, that agreed to actually conduct this campaign with us, and it was quite interesting. One of the first questions that we were having was definitely, what is going to be the role of government, you know, in whatever framework, you know, we are designing. And even 2 days ago, one of the African ministers were putting the same question to us. So it's quite interesting to bear in mind that, okay, government really would like to have a say on this. And to finish it, I think we should see this in a kind of 3 period, you know, work we are doing. What we are doing now is the first period, you know, tabling the proposal in front of the NTIA. Second period is going to be the time from, say, maybe September, October, you know, to maybe June. Where definitely we will have heard from, feedback from the U.S. government. But this also called for a certain way of keeping the awareness and also working, of course, within ICANN, but outside ICANN to prepare for the transition. And of course, we believe that after June, certainly, we might be having the kind of transition. So I would like us to also think and be ready for these 3 sort of phases now. You've done something that's quite interesting. You've participated. We are looking forward to more participation from Africa, and we are ready to assist on that. So thanks for the kind of outreach you are doing here. I see it's not quite simple to understand those things, especially of those acronyms, but I think we need to be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre. And yes, it is very crucial that more and more people join, and more people and initiatives like the one you've mentioned and everybody here on the panel, to make sure that people are informed and they participate. I'll take a couple of questions and then we can answer them. Any other questions? No. Andrew.
First of all, thank you very much for what I think is one of the best explanations of what's gone on to this point, starting with Mary, of anyone that I've ever heard. I thought it was really, really well done. And I'd like to compliment what I've heard from my friends in the African internet community. I think what you guys have done is, mostly guys, not all guys, has been really very impressive. You have almost universally shown an attitude that is very practical, very not political, not shrill, and that's the way we're going to move forward, I think, very nicely. So really high compliments to everyone based on the conversations that I've had. So my question is, I'm with you up until the time Mwendwa starts going into the details of how all of this is, how the sausage is made, right? And I've been to 26 or 27 ICANN meetings, and I can barely follow what you just said. So I can only imagine that a person who is less experienced is going to have a hard time with it. Is there? Can you? Two things. Number one is, can you recommend a map that we can follow a little bit more, less on words and more on visuals? That will help. But the other thing is, for other people who would like to share their voice and share their thoughts, if you can point them to very specific things that they can do, because there's no way they're going to catch up if you're doing 5 and 6 hour conference calls. God bless you, I can't imagine. But they're not going to catch up. So maybe there are some specific areas that you could point them to that where the voice would be particularly helpful and useful, and they're going to feel like their work is valued. Thanks.
Fiona, I think that was directed to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Part of the reason I spoke slowly through is because my slides were not ready, and I wasn't able, the internet had an issue. But I will circulate the slides. There'll be slides available for use to refer to what I was discussing. And we do have the ICANN, not the team that does the graphics, the visualization team has been working with us. So we do have, actually I was going to use those visual maps on what the flow of the work and what is happening. And those are available on the ICANN wiki. Anyone on the ICANN wiki, if you go to the accountability, you go ICANN wiki accountability, then scroll down to graphics. In the graphics, you will find very simply explained what is the process, where we are at, what each of the phases is, and what is pending. So it gives clear direction on where we are at, and that should be easy to understand. Second is on the. What was the second issue?
So my second issue was just a suggestion or a request, okay. And that is for those people in the community who wish to be helpful, if we can come up with a few small, a point where we are. Hey, we'd like your comments on this, something specific, something smaller, that doesn't force them to become experts in this, because I don't think that's likely to be the case.
Actually, that has been done in Kenya. When we went for public comments, Kenya were able to get together and to discuss on inputs. But because we tried getting input from the mailing list, and people are not so responsive, and maybe that's something we need to discuss and see what do we need to do to get our region to participate more. However, when the Kenya ICT Action Network decided to have a get-together and invite us to come and share where we are at, we got quite a bit of feedback through that process. Then we saw a number of different countries were starting to do the same. So maybe, my suggestion is to the ICANN staff for the region, it would help if we could have our webinars at a time suitable for the region. Because when you have two webinars and one is suitable, the other one is at a time when our entire continent is asleep, it becomes very difficult for us to participate and get the input. So if we can have webinars within time frames, webinars for this continent within time frames that are either morning or afternoon hours for our region, it will help significantly, because that means then people have two options of opportunities to participate, as opposed to two options, but one is in a time zone that is way out. So that for me is my suggestion, because I think we need to really drive participation and encourage input from everyone that we can possibly reach. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, please, Kivuva.
Okay. I would like actually to thank ICANN, because through the leadership of Pierre, we had like an IANA Transition Month in Africa. And several countries within the region had physical meetings. Nairobi, we had a hub at a hotel in central Nairobi. Uganda, they had a hub. Nigeria, they had a hub. Ghana, they had a hub. And they sat in a physical meeting like this. There was this type of presentations. People, actually the community, they asked questions and there was feedback. And that feedback was actually taken to the ICANN meeting in Buenos Aires. And Africa was actually the only community through AFRALO, African at Large Organization, that actually had a position on the IANA transition. There was no other community outside Africa that had a position. So I think we have actually had a very proactive role in the whole issue of IANA transition.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah.
Please.
I wanted to maybe just have some highlights on the completion phase for this process. I think we are entering the completion phase. The proposals have reached the coordination group, and once the coordination group has processed these, they go over to the current oversight system. Through the working groups that are currently looking at this, what completion phase are you seeing? I think that there is a graphic that came out of the recent ICANN meeting that shows a path through NTIA, through Congress, and so forth. Maybe you can just produce some highlights on what this phase looks like. Thanks.
Okay,
I will let Mary take that.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I have second to the last slide of my presentation, please? I'll project what he had just said now. Second to the last slide, where you have transition timeline per what Fadid gave us. Yeah, thank you very much. That's exactly what it will look like, that the phase one community proposals. For the ICG, we have received all the proposals. We have done initial assessment of all the community proposal we have received. Second, we have lined up calls and meetings we are going to hold on this, and we already started identifying where there are gaps or where there are conflicts, and have been going back to the community, and we are communicating with the communities as well. And phase one will be this community proposal, and we are hoping that that phase will end as soon as the accountability group will be able to give the workstream 1 proposal, because workstream 1 affects the proposal from the naming community is dependent on what will come out from workstream 1 of the accountability. So we're waiting for that, and that will be it. So the multi-stakeholder community would do its work, give back to us as the ICG, and we in the ICG will put these things together, and we are hoping that we are going to give it to the ICANN to transmit to NTIA, and that we're looking at 2016. That's when the coast is not clear as to when it will happen in 2016, but it can happen earlier than June 2016. Okay, so after that, it will be given to NTIA for review. It will take between 4 to 5 months for NTIA to review that, because NTIA will review and send it to the Congress, right? And the Congress, they are going to work on that for 30 legislative days, not 30 working days, 30 legislative days. So any day they didn't meet is not counted. So it's only days they will meet. So that's why the 4 to 5 months is assumed. Then the final phase will be the phase 3. Transition will start. Okay, transfer of, then ICANN would have been able to do all the things that Fiona told us about the bylaw changes. So, and I want to raise a point here. What they are doing at accountability, we should please be interested, because that's what is going to govern ICANN, and ICANN is the major organization that would be relating with us. We don't relate with IANA function as such, but ICANN is the face we relate with. And any structure that will come up, that's the structure we are going to work with. So we need to follow the accountability track. The naming track is almost completed, but the accountability track is critical for us. For instance, people are asking, should ICANN continue to be in US as a US jurisdiction? What do you think? If it becomes a fundamental bylaw that ICANN must continue to be in the US, then it's difficult to change. But people are clamoring for the globalization of ICANN, and if we are part of it, we should also make comment towards that. So we should follow that. Our government, what Pierre commented, my government asked what would be our own role. I said we should follow the accountability track and be able to see that what is being proposed will not jeopardize our processes and our relationship and our sovereignty, because sovereignty is key when it comes to that. So that's where I will end for now. Thanks.
Thanks, Mary. Just one point of clarification. Can you please go back to the slide? Thanks. So as you can see, the whole idea, and of course all these timelines are very sensitive because they depend on the work of many groups. But the idea is for the proposal, including the accountability part, for IANA to be submitted in October of 2015, and that will be the ICANN 54 meeting in Dublin. So, and after that, as Mary said, the whole process needs to start kicking in. And the reason that Congress is involved is because you have got to understand this is a contract that is administered by US law. So the same way that contracts that are conducted in this jurisdiction, in any other jurisdiction, nobody can go and tell them how to do them and give notice. This is a contract that is being administered by domestic law. So all the process, according to the US domestic law, needs to be employed in order for that to happen. And that includes also a certain time for Congress to review it, and certain time for implementation, and a certain time for all these things to appear. Having said that, this is what the communities are working up against, and it's a very tight time frame, and please do not underestimate the work that all these people sitting here have been doing for all these months, because there is a great deal of pressure for this to get it right. And I think that, just briefly, and I'm sorry for taking the role of a panelist here, somebody asked what is the role of governments, and governments already participate in the process. They participate as members of the ICG that will compile the proposal, and they also participate in the accountability process. Fiona had already mentioned that Alice Munya is part of this process. So governments do have a role. They do have a role, as they do have a role in all other internet governance fora. The role of governments, their participation is very, very important. So To the extent that the multi-stakeholder participation is being ticked, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think that we can tick this box because the processes have been open to all stakeholders from anywhere. Any other questions before we conclude? Oh, yes, Fiona, please.
Possibly one thing that I need to add is that the conference calls for all the groups are open. If you feel you have time, you want to maybe just spend an hour listening to what we are discussing, when you go to the ICANN wiki, you'll get the schedule of when the next calls are coming. It doesn't matter whether it's a work party call, it's a work stream call, it's everything is in the public space. You can log in, there's a link there, you can log in, you can listen in to the discussions, and I think you can also participate. You can raise questions where it is not clear, because you can actually participate in the discussion and ask when it is not clear for further clarifications, because it is an open process. You can join the mailing list, you can receive the updates on email on what we are discussing. So it's very, very, very open. All the groups involved have been extremely open so that everybody can participate. We need to be more visible as a region. And I don't know how to emphasize that more, because well, when you have 155 people and you have only 3 Africans, 4 Africans, seriously?
Yes, Chair. If you don't have Skype or internet, if you don't have internet access, you can be called on your phone. They can dial out to you. You listen. Okay, so it is as simple as that. So if you just send an email and give your phone number, they will actually call you and you will join the call. And today we have ICG call by 15 hours to 1750 hours today. So you can join in, you can call, you can ask questions, you can make comments, you can say your mind. So it's an open process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. So, before I conclude, and I don't think that my panelists would really like that, I am volunteering these people for you all to come here and ask all the questions that you want. They will direct you to the website and the material. There is an IANA coordination group dedicated website that has all the documents that you need to know. Fiona has already told us, and there is a website dedicated also to the accountability stream. There are a lot of documents in there. You don't need to read them all, but you can start familiarizing yourselves with the process. Participation is easy. We've heard, Mary is spot on. You can be dialed out. It is really important that more and more people get engaged in this process. This is an opportunity for dialogue. This is an opportunity for you to be heard. And this is an opportunity for all voices and regional perspectives to be brought into these discussions. And these are very important and very crucial. And with that, I don't think we have any other questions. I don't want to exclude anyone. I don't want to keep you also from lunch. I would like to sincerely and wholeheartedly thank my panelists for providing these updates, and all of you for sticking with us, even though this is a very, very complex issue. Thank you very much, and have a great lunch.
Thank you, Konstantinos. Another round of applause for our panelists. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mwendwa. Thank you, Fiona, for the wonderful presentations that you've made. We are going to move swiftly into our last panel, which is basically the closing panel. We are concluding